much, Pam, and thank you to everybody. It's lovely to see you all again, for those of you who were at the first session that I came along and spoke to you. So my name is Jenny, as Pam said. I'm one of the Digital Learning and Teaching Skills Officers in Education Scotland, and my background is nursery primary, but I have been working in local authority for about 5 years with all sectors. So hopefully there's something in this afternoon session, regardless of what age and stage you work with, that you will see how you might apply it to your own practice. So this afternoon, I thought we would go through, all of you we're using Teams now, and because of COVID, we're all very familiar with using Teams, but we're going to go over some of the personalisation side of things that you may not be as familiar with. And then, because this is focusing on how you can use class Teams for the personalisation of tabs, channels, assignments and rubrics. Okay, so we're also going to look at insights as well. So getting the most out of Teams rather than just always having to add into it, so that it impacts your own professional knowledge around what it is that you want to know about your learners' use of these resources too. And then we're going to look quickly at Class OneNote, how you can use that, setting up and sharing your Class OneNote within your team. It would be super. So I can't respond to the chat at the moment, but I can see the chat. So if you've used Class OneNote, it would be really helpful if you could pop that in the chat. Or if you haven't as well, just so that I'm a little bit more aware of who's used what. Because what we're going to do is look at the core tools and how you can add content. So these are really work smart tools, giving you lots of information, reducing your workload a little bit because you're able to distribute things much more easily. But if there's anything that's not there you thought we were going to cover, please pop it in the chat. I'm seeing one person saying that they've used it, so that's super to hear. Great. So just a really quick overview around class Teams and why you might want to use class Teams. So obviously, as you'll be familiar with our session for today, you can have conversations, ask questions, share information and build relationships within our school community with our learners really easily. It allows for flexibility, especially when some learners may not be able to attend class. They can still ask questions as if they were still available to you in the school building. We've also able to have online meetings, share screens and video conferencing, and the sharing screens aspect of it is really useful, and Class OneNote does that brilliantly. So I'm seeing lots of people have been using it, so that's super. So hopefully I'll be able to show you some new things today, especially if you've never used it. But yeah, we'll cover some things, so thank you for that. But we can use Class OneNote within our team to share our screen, and it works as a live document that our young people can contribute to, and we can use interactively with them. So essentially an interactive board, but regardless of location. It's really powerful. So a couple of things just to make you aware. So as we've all been using Teams and been increasingly using Teams, people are starting to add to them. They may be continuing to use a team that's established. One of the questions I get a little bit, I get quite frequently, is how much stuff can they put in a team? Can people put in a team? So one single Microsoft team is able to cope with 25 terabytes of storage. So to give you that, your own OneDrive is, we always reference it as being virtually unlimited because it gives you 1 terabyte. So one class team is 25 terabytes. So there's essentially not really any limit to what you have. So if you are running one team over a couple of academic years, you should never really run out of space, even if you are perhaps a data heavy subject, such as, for example, music or art, where you're recording like really high quality and large file sizes. Same for if you are one of the technical subjects and you maybe have large CAD files. So As you'll all be aware, we can access on any device. We can upload and create files. And again, that flexibility means that if the software is on our device, we can upload that file to it, even if we go to another device that doesn't have it temporarily on it. So if you were using a Mac at home, you come in and use a Windows, but then you pick up an iPad, that file will still be available to you, even though it's a Microsoft product and you haven't been able to use it in between. So it's really flexible in terms of being able to upload and create file spaces. And you can obviously collaborate on it. And we touched on that in the first session that I came and spoke to you about. The personalisation of the tabs are really important because it's a great way to get as much out of your team as possible, and your class team in particular. So obviously we are going to look at class OneNote, which it comes with, but you're able to embed resources and documents. You can personalise it with a huge range of these tabs. If you aren't familiar with Power BI, that's becoming an increasingly popular tool, and if you haven't looked at that and you're maybe looking at how your next steps are, so some of you are saying you're familiar with some of these products, Power BI might be a nice way for you to look at it's a sort of if what then kind of tool. So if you've got data, what do you want to do? So you can set up automation. So it's looking at the AI in the system. You can set up little things. I'll show you where to get information around that at the end though. But you can create a stream, you can create your websites and links to it. And you can integrate forms, polls and quizzes. We're not going to cover a huge amount. I will touch on forms very briefly for when we're looking at assignments, but I'm aware that's coming up. So we're not going to look at that in depth, but you can create these shortcuts for your class that are temporary. And that's the important thing, is your tabs are personalised and so are your channels. So we also have insight data to track engagement, and this can be quite granular as well now. So those of you who are maybe using it last year but have not revisited it this year, there's been huge improvements in what you can actually track to support the health and well-being of young people perhaps, and I'll touch on that when I show you it later on. You get a live summary of your coursework, so you're able to see the coursework as it's been submitted, and it allows you to have that touch point with the class when they're in, able to check in with young people. If you think consistently they're late, you maybe want to have that discussion with them if you've seen that they've not submitted their work, and it allows you to have that clear overview. And importantly, you can also get your data for submitted work, which can then be shared with SLT in your setting and can inform that bigger picture around the young person. And then finally, you can create a bank of rubrics and forums which can be shared with your colleagues so that you have that work available within your department or your setting or your stage. And that again can link to success criteria, learning intentions that you have created, and we'll touch on that too. And the rubrics are really useful. So a couple of things I want to flag up, because again, we're all getting familiar with using teams, but we often fill out create a new team, and we create a new team, but we don't spot this. So if you've not seen it, you are able to create a team from an existing team. So if last year you built a team and you were thinking it was amazing and you want to reuse it, rather than having to spend hours rebuilding it and putting it all together, you can select this create from template, and it will take all of the structure of your old team, but none of the personal data, so none of the users, etc., none of the assignments data. It just uses the framework. It lets you pick easily any of the teams that you're an owner of in here, and once selected, it sets up your team for you, as you can see here. And you obviously get that class material shortcut and setting up the automated class notebook. And class notebook as well also now has that feature. So if you haven't maybe used it this year so much, class notebook again allows you to simply create one from a template. So if you were using it or you are using it and you like that format, maybe you've moved to a new setting, you can recreate it. And I think this is quite an important graphic. I'm going to share this PDF, this PowerPoint in PDF with Pam, so don't worry about capturing too much while I'm speaking. But This is an overview of the OneNotes that come with each type of team when you do set up your team. So a class team is coming with a class notebook, and the difference between that and traditional OneNote is that your OneNote is a personal document. It's basically your own ring binder. Class notebook allows your pupils or learners to have their own individual section that the owners of the team, the practitioners, have access to, but none of the other learners do. So it's a private sort of tab for just them and the owners of the team, so they can share their work and feel secure in doing so. But if you do create a more general one, perhaps for staff, it comes with a OneNote that's more traditional to what you maybe have been using in the past for your own use, and the folder can be seen by everybody. There's no private sections, etc. If you are a staff leader and you maybe want to have a section where staff members can have their own section with SLT, you might want to create a staff team. And if you do see that other one, not very many people create an other type of team, but it doesn't have a OneNote essentially. The one thing I would say is with OneNote, it's great for keeping your work notes and everything like that in it. I use it for that a lot. However, nothing that doesn't relate to learning and teaching or is deemed as sensitive should ever be stored within Glow. So just a wee word about that. And today we're going to focus on class OneNote. So, as I said, it's like an online jotter. We're going to mainly be doing live demos. I just thought these might be handy bullet points if you are as pathway leaders, then you may find these useful for sharing with others. So as I've said, it's an online jotter or folder. It comes with tabs that you can personalize, share, and for class notebook, distribute to your learners or your colleagues easily. Again, network connectivity is always an issue in school. The school I was in had fabulous Wi-Fi, except in 2 bits where you would sometimes want to go and do work. But the benefit of using OneNote, which I did do with my class, was they could work offline, and the minute their devices went back online, it would automatically sync. So really suitable for online or offline. So don't worry if you don't have full connectivity in your setting at present. And again, you can integrate forms, quizzes and polls in it. So again, distributing them to specific learners, all learners, etc. There is no limit to how much you can put in a OneNote. That is, you can have as many bits, pages, sections, tabs, and there's no limit at all. And again, if you've got handheld devices, we've got digital inking, text to speech and integrated support. And I'm going to show you that because I always find it really useful. You can remove it, but it comes with that support. So if you do have practitioners that you might be working with and sharing this with, it doesn't matter if they are less confident or if you're less confident, all of that support's there. If you don't need it, delete it. If you do, keep it. And again, you get some additional features, as with many Microsoft products, if you use the desktop version. So we'll touch on both this afternoon. So some core things just in OneNote. So many of you, if you've been using it for professional use, but maybe not with your class. So if you've been using it for collegiate work, a couple of things as shortcuts. We have Dictate, which I touched on with Word a few weeks ago with you. It also, as I said, integrates forums, has built-in maths tools. So if you are secondary, you can put in your equations and it will work them out for you. But if you're primary, even if you for as a class teacher, I used to want to write half, like a lot, that will allow you to have that smart text pulled into the proper annotation for it, so learners are seeing it noted properly. You can import audio files, and it has built-in immersive reader, which again we touched on in our introductory session. Okay, and as I said, when you start up, you simply choose to turn on, set up your class notebook. And if you want to use an existing one, you can do just by clicking that. When you set it up, it comes with these sections. So you have a collaboration space. I'm going to talk to you about this in a minute. Content library, and then you can choose to have a teachers only section. And then you have your pupil netbooks. But every time you set one up, these options are all completely customizable, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I think from there, we're going to go into having a little look, unless anyone has any questions. I don't see any, but if you do have any, please do ask. I am happy to answer. Okay, so if I open up my team page, so when you're in your teams, you can see I've got two identical teams here. So we're not going to go through how to set up a team because I'm seeing there that it looks like the team's interface. But if you do ever want to know, start a join create team. So once you've got your team set up, here's a brand new one. That's the picture that you saw in that PowerPoint. You can see if I want to create a class notebook, I can do that from here. And if I want to upload class materials, it's always a good idea to set up your channels and use your general information for announcements and assignments. All assignments that are issued will always appear in your general channel. The other thing that's here though is that class materials folder is available within the general channel and only the general channel. It appears here. And it's available only to teachers to add things. So students can view it, they can access it. So again, it's a really great place to put coursework notes, to share information, maybe reference in an assignment that we'll look at in just a second. But you're not necessarily wanting the young people to interfere or change the documents that are there. It's purely for their information. So what I've done in here is, because there's only one of these folders, I would, oops, it's in my other one. Let me just open that one up. That's the trouble with having two teams with the same name. Within here, what I've done is in my class materials, I've created a folder for each of the channels. So it might be that we do work or share information around there, but I would always create a folder for each channel. And that's a really nice way to make life easier for students who are maybe getting lots of resources shared with them in person or remotely. It's a nice place as well for them to be able to refer back to something that's happened in school day, and it allows them to share that with family members if they're talking about what their learning has been, provided the young person logs in. So we have our general channel and we have our file space. As I mentioned up here, we've got our tabs and we can personalize it by adding in our stream, which is a way to create videos. There's not enough time in this short session today, but I will share where you can get support and advice around Stream. But Stream will allow you to create a sort of bank of videos, and you can create a sort of channel that your young people in that team are able to access. But we could just place it simply to a website. So if we just go to Google, and I realise that a lot of you may be familiar with this, but just in case there's anybody sitting maybe less familiar, I'm just going to make sure that we're covering this. So we can take our URL, paste it in here, and as long as it says HTTPS, then you can upload it. The other thing is just make sure that you've got this post to channel about it. So for your young people, you would want them to be aware that you've added that. That tab takes them straight into there, and that's really useful if you've got learners who are less familiar with using different screens for their learning in terms of opening lots of new tabs. So if that's likely to confuse a young person, having all the tabs that they might need for a particular lesson, because again, these can be selected and removed at any time, means that your lesson's contained within your team. Oh, Pam's added in a video about Stream. Thank you so much, Pam. So I would recommend checking that if you haven't looked at it. So we have our general space and we've created our channels. To create any new channel, I'm just going to go into here and I'm going to select Manage Team. So I want to show you a couple of things here as well. So within the channels, I'm not sure if you're aware, hopefully you are, but just in case you're not, what you can do if you have a class team is, as well as add a channel, for example, we've got technology, so we'll do social studies. You can automatically choose whether to show or hide that channel. So if we choose to show it, and add, you'll see it appears down the side. But if you have learners who maybe you don't want them to be distracted by all of the other different channels that are there, you can go into your Manage Team Access point. You're going to go to Channels and you can choose to turn that on or off for the participants of your team. So not the owners, but the members. So that makes it much more easy. Now I'm the owner, so I'm going to see them all anyway. But if I was to hide it, it would eventually disappear for me. You'd see it goes hidden. So again, keeping our learners focused on a specific task or allowing us to prep things in advance where verbal advice might be given to only look at the channels that are there. Don't worry about the ones that are hidden just yet. Allows you to build and prep things in the background. They can, of course, still access them, but they're less prominent. So that is a really simple way to edit and change. You can also get a range of tools, including a link to the channel that you might want to direct. Maybe a specific, if somebody's coming to do an observation in your class, you might want to give them a link to that channel so that they can see the work that's going on. You also in here have analytics, and so this is just me, so obviously there's not going to be very exciting analytics for it, but I do want to flag up why they're useful. This allows you to see a trend. So if you are sharing your class team out with everyone, you might want to track when they're engaging. So this is particularly useful, I think, for maybe secondary teachers who may not see their learners every day. So it allows you to see if that if the class as a whole are engaging with your team beyond the day that you see them on, if that's what you've asked them to do, if there's peaks and troughs and if there's trends. You can look at the granular data, and I'm going to show you that when we look at assignments, because that's where the more specific individual learner data comes from. You can personalize it by 7, 30 and 90 days. And you can also choose to view it by channel as well. So obviously I created this team on the 21st, and then I've been kind of just footering in the last couple of days with it to make sure that it's right. Okay, so that's our general space, our adding new channels, and also using that manage team to amend the channels that are visible and look at the analytics for it. I'm presuming everybody's aware, but just in case you're not, the settings team, and this is more a security thing, if you are reusing a team, in terms of you used it before, you've removed learners, you may always want to generate a new code for joining. So simply generate your code, share it out with your class. Once everybody you need to be a member is a part of your team, just remove the code. It ensures that the code's not shared with anyone beyond your class, that you don't need to be added. And if you do want to add an individual, that can be done easily using the 3 dots at the top and add member. You can also do it by the members tile. Okay, so I now have my team. I've added one person, my colleague Susan, so she's in my class. We're all set. I've created my general space, and you can see I've issued a couple of assignments just before our session today. So I issued them yesterday. So what I can do is I can issue an assignment, which is the slightly different version. So again, if you want to pop in the chat, if you've used assignments, that would be really useful to know. But the way assignments work is you can personalize documents and share information with your learners, set a return date, review the returned work, and keep things in draft. So Mrs. Love hasn't used assignments. So Mrs. Love, you're going to like this, I think. So Mrs. Chand, you have used them. Okay, cool. So it'd be great to know who has and who hasn't, and if you liked using them and if learners liked using them as well. Thank you. So you can see at the moment my class has 2 activities that are assigned. We have a maths quiz and we have a water cycle. Nobody's handed their work in. Susan's on annual leave at the moment, so that's why she's not done her work, but that's okay. What we can also see is anything that I might have in draft, or right at the bottom of my screen, I can create a new assignment. That's what we're going to do today. So I have two choices when I click create. I can choose from an existing one that may have already been issued. I can create it from a quiz. So if you use Microsoft Forums and you want to reissue that, you might want to issue the quiz, but we're going to start with a standard assignment. Mr. Anderson, oh, it's great that your children like that you could give them feedback. That's super to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so when you click an assignment, and I would recommend starting with the full assignment way to start with, or the forums one, if you've got a big bank of forums and you're thinking, okay, I want to just get into this quickly, issue a forum first, but play around with creating your own draft assignments. You can delete them at any time if you don't need them. So the way it works here is you can give your title, your assignment a title. So we're going to call this Healthy Hearts. So underneath we can use tags. So if we select tag, we can choose science. So this allows you to pull up when you've got all your results in for submitted work. It allows you to look at just those results. So using tags is really helpful. So we'll put in science, and we also instead we could also put in, if we wanted to create a new one, health well-being. When you're ready, just hit return and it puts the tag in. It builds up a wee bank for you. Okay. We then give instructions, just like Word, and we can attach information. So I've got some resources that I want my learners to look at. So first of all, I'm going to say, please think about what we covered in class. Watch the brief video on the heart. And as if by magic, here's one I prepared earlier. So I've got a YouTube clip. So here's a YouTube clip about the circulatory system that I want my learners to watch. And then and using the poster, please complete now, obviously, if I was doing this in real life, I would have set that all aside, and I don't want you all sitting there just listening to me typing. So here we would have covered this in class. I want them to look at the poster, watch the video, consider the lessons that we've been doing as part of our IDL topic. I want them to then go off and they're going to create a document, and I could give them that document. But as I've said, look at the poster, I'm going to attach the poster. And what I can do from here is I can upload it from my OneDrive, I can upload it from my device, I can take it from my class notebook, I can put a link to the internet. I've already embedded it in here because I'm going to upload this poster here. So I'm going to upload that. So I'm giving them this poster, which is just basically a poster of the circulation system. It's going to attach. I can upload as many items as I want. I can choose whether or not I'm going to award points. So we might be having like table points or challenges like that. So I can choose to do that. But at the moment, I'm not. And I'm going to issue a rubric. What I love about this is, as you go, you might build up a bank of rubrics. So rubrics just allow you to give feedback to your young people. It allows them to be guided with their lessons, and you can tie it directly to your success criteria and learning intention. So you can see this morning I created one on the circulation system. I could, however, just add a new one. So just to let you see, this is what a blank rubric looks like. You can, if you have a template your school already uses, so if I cancel that and I click add rubric, you can upload your own rubric though to help you. However, we're going to add a rubric. We can give it a title, we can type in our description, We can change any of these columns to have more or less than we want in terms of categories, and we can turn on points. But in my Blue Peter style, I'm going to add rubric, select the one I made earlier, and here it is. So I'm going to reiterate my learning intention as my description. So we've taken that directly from the experiences and outcomes. I'm using the success criteria I had issued with my class, so you can see it kind of gives them a little more detail around what the activity is that I've summarised for them in this assignment, but you could be more detailed. And then I've told them what each of these categories means. So an achieved status means that they've given me detailed description of the main components, etc. Partial means that some of the description is there, the main components of the heart, but there's a diagram with no labelling, and this means that it's not very accurate at all. This for the activity part, it's planned, tested, etc. Here there might not be any results, and here there's an activity being carried out, but they're just telling you. You know, sometimes a young person might say, "Oh, I did it, but I've just not written the form down." We've all done that as well. We've all had that where I've done it, but I haven't got the evidence yet. So you can say, well, at the moment that would be not yet achieved. Once you've used your success criteria and learning intention to guide how you want your rubric to form, simply select attach. You'll see that it attaches eventually here. So we've got our rubric here at the side. It's got that little grid. We can go back in at any time and edit it by going here, and we can choose yes if we want to add points, and we can change those points to be whatever we want. The AI in the system also works out the percentage for each one. If you want to do that, you could also give it sort of, this is worth 40%, this would be worth 20, and this would be worth, oh, got myself, what did I say, 40? This would be worth 40 as well. So it'll work it out, and it won't let you click on update until everything is accurate and these all match up to 100%, for example. But we're going to also, you're able to download it as a CSV file, so it allows you to have a copy of it for future reference. So once you've got your form, you then decide who you want to issue it to. You choose the team and confirm that that's the correct team. You select the students, and you can choose all the students, an individual student, and it'll give you a list of names. I only have one student, so we're going to send it to her. However, you would just choose that. Or alternatively, you can choose a group of students. And if you choose a group of students, you would basically choose to manually add them. Oh, I think that should just appear for you in a second. It'll choose to manually group your students, or you can just have a random group, and the computer will generate that for you, so that there's not specific groupings. Choose your assignment date, choose your return time, and this bit here is quite handy. So if a student hasn't working, you can give them like a sort of soft extension. So it says like it might be due on, for example, it might be due tonight, but actually we can choose that we were going to have late turn-ins. So here we're saying this is when it's due to come in, but we can actually say we don't really want it to close until the day after, and then we're going to post the date in our team. So this is when we're going to let them know. So we need to let them know before that. And we choose a time, so we would say 5 o'clock, say. But we're going to give it a close date of tomorrow, so we're going to be a bit generous, but we're not maybe going to say. You can also choose to add it to a learner's calendar, and you can choose whether that also gets added to the owners as well. So if you're sharing this with perhaps a student teacher, or if you're sharing it with other members of your department, anytime you create a team, no one person should ever be the owner of that team, just in case they change jobs or they're off ill. And then again, you can choose to add that as a notification to the team. Once you're happy, select schedule. So we've now assigned Healthy Hearts, we've tagged it, It's scheduled to go out. And if we were to come back at 5 o'clock and look at this, we would see it available there. Here's an example of one that we've done earlier. We can click View Assignment. We can see they've not handed it in. So I haven't issued any feedback, and I'm going to show you a completed one in just a second and where there's points available. There's the tabs down the side as well. So as well as your assignments, you've also got grades and insights, and we're going to look at them in just a second. But I wanted to show you, if you click on create and quiz, and I know, as I say, your upcoming session's on forum, so I don't want to go into this too much, but you can create a quiz, select from the quizzes that are inside your Glow forums, select the one that you want, select next, and essentially you go through the exact same thing, but you don't have quite as many of the options that you would have had, so there's no rubric for them to go along with. You can still categorize it, and you can still assign it. So we could just assign it now, and you can see that's available. If we go to here, you can see there's the assignment that I just issued, and for anyone in the team, when they click it, they'll see this. Does anyone have any questions? There? No? Okay. So what I'm going to do is come out of there just now, and your screen should refresh and show you a slightly different view. So this is a Microsoft demo account that I'm using, and this is so none of these young people are real, but it just lets you see kind of more of a detailed example of what this might look like for you rather than for me, because I don't have a class. So there's an example of an assignment that's been issued. You can see the conversation going back and forward between the example teacher and the learner, and all of the channels are being used for different units of work or homework help, etc. So here's our assignments. And here you can see, unlike my example, because there's multiple people in here, 11 people have returned it. So if I select that assignment, I can see that one person has still to return it, but these people have returned it. So that allows me to look at their work. So if I click on the first one, Enrico, I can click on it. I can see this is very thematic, so there's a load of drawings that you'll see. I can also see the guidance. I can see information that was shared, and if there was a rubric given for this, I would be able to see that down the side as well and use that as my point of reference when marking. So at any time I could issue feedback in here by typing it, and I can choose to return it. So this has already been returned, which is why it's greyed out. Once you click return, the scores are automatically inserted. If we just go here, into your grades section. So I'm just going to repeat that. So we go into assignments, we can see all our assignments here. If we look at one that's assigned, go to linear equations, select who has returned their work. You can see if you've issued feedback because it fills in the speech bubble. So here we have no feedback issued because it's hollow. We can see if it's been checked along at the end, and if we select a box, we've got a statement, we've got their work guidance that we've issued, we've got the rubric again that I was referencing. Oh, just give my screens a minute to catch up with me. Oh, there we go. The rubric will appear down the side, so if you issued a rubric, you can click that. It appears just there, and you can go through the different categories. So that's where I use my success criteria. In my example, I'd be scrolling through these, and I can see what I picked, and I would be able to choose the score I want to award. Issue feedback, and if we say well done, obviously you would give much more detailed feedback than that. Click done and click return. So when you're finished for the young person's work, you simply go back there. You can see that there's comments. It's been returned to that young person, and they are able to see their work again. So a really straightforward way of doing it. It saves lots of back and forward, clicking on everybody individually, as we might have to have done before. Everything is in one place for your learners as well as for yourself. So I'm just going to flip out from here, and I'm going to open this because I want to just flag this up. I'm not going to show you this, but our team also has a video that lets you see it exactly from the learner's point of view of what that looks like. And we've taken you through it. So how they might submit their work, what it looks like, because often it's quite hard if we're just seeing our point of view and we don't see what the learner sees. So there is this short video on Did You Learn, Scott, that will let you see that. And there's a link to this at the end as well. So don't worry, but that video on student view is available because it's like I say, it's hard if you aren't seeing what learners are seeing. Okay, so we have looked at issue and assignments, and what does that look like for our grades? So grades are an overview of all of the work that's been handed in over the time that the team has been live. So I'm just going to move my little box out. So here we've got whether or not something was turned in or not. So there's no scores awarded. We can see that it was turned in, and then if we've sent it back, returned means that we've sent it back to the pupil so that they can see the feedback. We can see if we've awarded a point system to them, and it allows us to track that young person. So if all of the way through we're using a consistent scoring pattern, for example, and we're seeing returned, and then all of a sudden we start to see not turned in, then that means that again we can have that conversation about sort of the wider picture with that young person, check in with them. So it's a really nice way to be able to have that quick overview of what's going on with your class. If somebody asks you for the data around that young person, again, it lets you see that. One of the most powerful things in class teams, though, is insights. So insights kind of, again, if you've used it, please let me know. This has had a big stride forward since the sort of summer onwards. Here you can see individual learners or participants of your team. And again, we would probably recommend that you're only using a class team with pupils. But here you can see that if you've held meetings, who's turned up regularly late. So again, there's that health and wellbeing discussion and the pastoral side of things. What's been going on? Who's the activity that's been happening? So we've got that there's 2 inactive students. So I know that in this class, I should have no inactive students. They're all fully engaged with me. But if they aren't engaging, I can use this track student activity button. And this gives me much more granular activity. So if we go in here and we have a little look, we can have a scroll through and we can see, so this young person has been engaging a lot. And that can be 2 things. That can be really positive, or it means that perhaps they're a little bit overly anxious and they're engaging because they're concerned about something. So if I select that young person, I can have a look at the time in which they're engaging. So that looks okay. They've come on first thing and they've come on at lunchtime, but then they've been on again after school. So I might want to come out of that and go back in and track a different activity that they've been doing. So maybe we'll have a look at it on this day. Oops. So again, that looks okay. But we can follow them all the way through. If we just go into insights again. Oops. So again, if we go in here, we can just double check. So again, they seem to be consistently on in the morning, were they in school, etc. But it allows you to see if they've been on at times when it's maybe not suitable for them to be on, or perhaps that there's a sort of inconsistent pattern. You know, we're seeing them do work at 11 o'clock at night quite a lot, or early in the morning, and that can be indicators around health and well-being or pastoral concerns that maybe guidance want to have a chat with, or the child protection officer might just want to check in with that young person, or so on. It might just be for the class, it might tie in a bigger picture if a young person's presenting as being quite tired, or if you're seeing their dots constantly being there, maybe they're a little bit anxious about things that are going on. So this allows you to see who's engaging, who's not engaging, what time they're engaging as well. So it's really quite powerful, I would say, for the use of it. So we can see here that Mateo Gomez has been on at 1 in the morning. So depending on the age and stage of the class, I would probably say that's not a good time to be on any time for anyone. But again, you know your young people, and so you would want to maybe have that chat with them, and so on. So does anybody have any questions around assignments, grades, or insights? Or can you see how they would be useful in your setting if you've not used them? Even if it's just yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down, etc. Hopefully you can. You've used Ms. McFarlane, that's great. Did you find them useful? Hopefully yes. Okay. So there are shortcuts at the top. Oh, perfect, great. So there's a really easy way to have a track. You have your overview here, you have your grades, and these are permanently there. Coursework that you're adding in your assignment, as we mentioned before, you may want to add into that file space and add it into the class materials if you're referencing it frequently. Okay, so moving on to our class notebook. So I'm going to go back to Glow again for this. I'll come out of Microsoft. This one. This one. Okay, so here's our team, and at the top we've got our class notebook. So I want you to imagine that as you saw before, I clicked create notebook and a blank notebook, and I built this one up. So for anybody who's not as familiar as some of you may be with class notebook, it's a space similar to OneNote, and if you haven't had a play around, click on it from the waffle up in the top of your team space, and have a wee play around with Notebook just to get familiar. You can't break it, nothing bad will happen. It's honestly, it's brilliant and it's really easy, but having your own one lets you get a little bit more familiar with it before you have to use it with your class maybe. So you have your class notebook, and here are the tabs. So we have our welcome tab up at the top. We have a using the teacher section or teachers only section, collaboration space, and content. So the way this works is the collaboration space is like a graffiti wall. So it allows you to collaborate with your class or your learner. So I used to use this with my class a lot. Like I used to use OneNote a lot when I was in school. So as you can see here, I've added some subsections in the collaboration space. All of these little labels that you're seeing are completely personalized. You can personalize them. So we have the collaboration space, that's fixed because I've turned that on when I clicked it. And we have added a section saying examples. So we could put in a new section here and say demo. So in here, everything that's in here is part of that subgroup of collaboration space. These are all subgroups of that. But in my example space, the way I used to use this was, one of the ways was I used to give like a challenge that I wanted my class to contribute to, but it's a great way as well of getting their ideas in one space. So for example, I've got so many things open. Let me just change the view of this a little bit. There we go. So up at the top, you'll see 3 icons. Stretch, which is the stretch view, so you just see the page. If you want your menus back, that little set of 3 lines is sort of the bookcase that brings back all the tabs. If you don't want that, just push it and it goes away. This refreshes your page. So if you've been working offline, or you've been working on a different device, you want it to sync, just use that reload tab button. And if you want to open this on the desktop, select the globe button and that opens it elsewhere. So here though, we've got a collaborative task. I've asked a question about something that we're doing in class. We watched a film clip and I want them to write about what they saw using concise language. So here I can see these are all individual responses. So hovering over them, as you're seeing, gives me that. Now, I obviously don't have a class anymore. So what I'm not seeing is initials. If I was the owner and these comments were placed there by learners, next to those wee arrows, those wee lines, you would see the initials of the person who's contributed to it. So that allows a certain level of anonymity, because if you hover over here, it just looks like a lot of words on the screen. So for reluctant contributors who are maybe nervous about contributing in a shared environment, this gives them that sense of privacy so that they feel more confident in contributing to your classwork. But for you as the teacher or the practitioner, you're then able to hover over and see who's contributed it. Have they got a brilliant idea? Or have they maybe got, and maybe this is like this person hasn't written concisely, it's accurate in terms of what they're trying to depict. So for literacy, you could be torn on that one. This is very basic, so we might want to maybe do a little bit of extension work with that young person. So that is how you can use a collaboration space. And in here, there's lots of different ways. So another example are those close-up pictures, like what animal is. So class, oops, notes, add a section, forms and or assessment, let's call it that. And so on. So you can have as many as you want, and you can always edit these at any time. When you're happy with the sections that you're giving for the students, select create, and it will get your notebook ready in the background. Once it's ready and set up, it will have the same appearance as the one that I just set up and showed you earlier. So again, it gives you, it lets you see your different sections. So this is a nice clean one because we've not got anything in it. Lets you see any sections. And if you're ever not seeing things being in the same place, even though you've maybe clicked to refresh, this lets you see if it's if it thinks it's up to date or not. So you can click that button as well, the little cloud, and that will sync it and tell you what to do. Other than that, those are your main key features of Class OneNote. You can see how simple it is. You can see how straightforward it is. It's really, really straightforward to use. That globe button takes you through and lets you see your desktop version, and it will also let you see and manage all of your notebooks from here. So that globe button lets you see the notebook you've created, lets you see any ones that you want to edit, add new learners to, and so on. And just in your OneDrive, we'll not go into it, but just to let you see, you'll see a folder that has class notebooks, and that will let you see any, eventually this will catch up with me. There will be a folder in your OneDrive once you create a OneNote class notebook, and that lets you see any folders that you've got, any class OneNotes that you've got. There's also another one that's called Notebooks that's there too. Eventually it will scroll down and show you that. Okay, so for the last few minutes, I'm just going to show you where to get some help and support, and then I promise that'll be me over unless anybody has any questions. One thing, the more you've been using Teams, you might be noticing that you get notifications. So I'm not going to go into this too much, but just other than this muting, putting yourself on Do Not Disturb, you are able to personalize all of the messages that come through. So if you're getting bing, 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 bing at the top in the activity button, go to notifications within your team setting and hit customize, and you can choose who and what is allowed through when you're teaching. So you're not being disturbed. That's quite a handy one to know if you haven't used it. The Microsoft Educator site has a ton of resources around Class OneNote. This is hyperlinked up. There are some useful courses that you might find useful, and this is a 2-minute video on rubrics and how to set them up within your Microsoft site, but these are all from Microsoft, so you might find these courses and pieces of information useful. No sign-in is needed to watch or participate in any of those ones. Our DigiLearn Scott team has a whole range of resources, including a whole load on 365. They're all bite-sized videos. You can click here to go to those. I've seen Pam has popped a couple of links in, and I know there's lots goes on in your authority and all the MIE experts as well. But you can also find additional information on Glow Connect, and again, Go Help with Glow Microsoft. And that just leaves me to stop speaking and say thank you so much. I hope there's been something, even if you were familiar, I hope there's been something for everybody in there. But please get in touch if I can be of any help.